Hey, hey, hey. Time for the Out of This World story from rSpace. It's not always about neglect or cruelty. Sometimes it's simply the slow fade of excitement that makes someone desperate to feel alive again. That restless hunger, that craving for the thrill they've lost. Today on rSpace, boredom is the devil's playground. Wife said she cheated because she was bored, so I spiced things up by exposing her to her family and friends. My wife Stacy, 28 female, and I, 29 male, have been married for only 2 years. It's crazy that just a few days ago I thought that things were perfect and that we were going to make it. You always hear complaints about how marriage is a scam, and I honestly thought it was a load of crap because I was dealt a pretty good hand in my case. I had another married friend who always told me to just wait until the honeymoon phase passed. But 2 years in, I was just as happy as I was the day we got married. That's an exaggeration, but I was still very happy. I thought my marriage was gold, but I didn't realize that was all a well-maintained illusion. When Stacy and I met 6 years ago, we were both full of energy and free time. Over the years, things have changed a bit. I'd like to think that we're both still pretty young, but there are a lot of new responsibilities we have to deal with now. We both climbed quite a bit in our careers, so free time isn't as abundant as it used to be. While we've a lot more financial freedom, it can be tricky to carve out time for us to go out and do something fun, and Stacy loves fun. I wouldn't say she was a party girl, but Stacy used to be the type to go out a lot. She lived for it, while I was always the indoor type. She used to joke that I was a houseplant, but we rubbed off on each other a bit. I got used to going out and having fun once in a while, and she got used to spending some weekends at home, enjoying a book or a movie. Meeting in the middle works great for everyone, right? Well, not really. It didn't work out so great for her, and she never told me. As far as I knew, we were both happy. I loved going out with her, and I also loved staying in to watch Netflix with her. I got the same impression from her. She never gave me any real signs that she was dissatisfied with her life and daily routine. That part pisses me off because is communication that hard? Looking back, I noticed a few changes, but they were so subtle that I didn't tag them as anything major. Sometimes she'd pass up on our nights in together to go out with friends. It didn't seem unusual for me. I knew she was still an extrovert at heart, so I didn't mind. However, she also seemed a bit disconnected at times. I'd try to talk to her, and it would feel like her mind was somewhere else. I didn't think too much about that either. We all get a bit stressed sometimes, so I just figured she was overworked. I even tried to make it up to her by taking her out for massages. I found out the truth when I got home early one day. I left work early, planning to surprise her with a nice dinner date. Instead, I caught her pants down in the living room, bent over the sofa with another guy behind her. She screamed the moment she saw me, and I just stood there staring. It felt unreal. I knew what I was seeing, but it felt like my eyes were lying to me. Remember that up until that point, I genuinely thought that my marriage was really good, and I never felt that there was anything to worry about. While I stood there trying to process what was going on, Stacy and the guy were both scrambling around trying to get dressed. Stacy was yapping about being sorry and that she could explain, but I wasn't really listening. I went from being numb to being angrier than I've ever been. I was so angry that I was shaking. I was mad enough to want to hit someone, and there was really only one acceptable target nearby. So I tackled him. I'm not proud of it, but that's what happened. I got him while he was pulling his pants up his legs, and I took him clean down. We fell to the ground together, and I'd already hit him twice when he started screaming, "I didn't know, bro, I didn't know." That was enough to get me to hesitate. Part of me wanted to beat his face in, and the other part understood that she'd probably lied to him about being single. Even though I was still fuming, I got off of him, and he rushed to put the rest of his clothes on. He scrambled out the door, still putting the rest of his clothes on. I screamed at Stacy and told her to tell me what was going on. She didn't cry or anything, but she looked scared. She'd just seen me tackle her affair partner and nearly beat him up, so I wasn't surprised. But she didn't show any real remorse either. She just stood there gawking at me like I was going to beat her up next. Instead, I just demanded an explanation. She took a while to get herself together. Then she told me that she'd been bored for a long time, and that was her way of looking at a little excitement. She said she was sorry, but the words didn't resemble an apology at all. She was scared, and it wasn't that she was truly remorseful. She didn't care. Maybe she didn't care what I thought, or maybe she really thought that she had a valid excuse for cheating on me. Either way, it pissed me off even more. I went on a long rant after that. I stomped around the room in circles just to keep myself from doing something I'd regret. I swore at her. I cursed her out. I shouted at her. At first, she was quiet, but eventually she started crying and shouting back. She said that I was the one who drove her to this. She said that I changed her too much and made her boring like me. She said she was just trying to feel alive again. I couldn't believe that. Trying to feel alive again? Did having a loyal husband and stable relationship somehow suck the life out of her? She wasn't even ashamed of what she'd done. It didn't even feel like she was making excuses. She actually felt like her actions were justified. She said she missed the spontaneous trips and gifts I used to get for her. But we both had busy jobs now and goals we had to save for. Was she really trying to blame me for being a responsible adult? By this time, she was fully dressed and I was storming outside. She followed after me, asking me to stay and just talk with her. I turned around to face her and asked what she wanted to talk about. The guy she was just banging in her living room? Or her miserable excuse for why she did it? She said we needed to talk together and work through the problem. According to her, it didn't need to be the end of our marriage, and we could fix the underlying problem. I just walked back to my car. Underlying problem? She was still insisting on putting all of this on me. Somehow, I bored her so much that the only option was to sleep with another dude. I wasn't just mad anymore. Now I was insulted. She was really trying to gaslight me with that work reason. How stupid did she think I was? I got into my car and slammed the door in front of her. She knocked on the window, but I put the car in gear and drove off. I drove nowhere in particular, just trying to clear my mind. I knew it was over. She could talk all the crap she wanted about how we needed to work things out, but this was the one thing that couldn't be worked through. She utterly destroyed our marriage and she wanted to make it my fault. That's what I couldn't get over. What really pissed me off was how unbothered she seemed about everything. I ended up waiting in a parking lot about 30 minutes from our house. I just sat in the car and thought for a while. I knew divorce was the only move, but it wasn't enough for me. I had to see my wife getting railed in the middle of our living room like it was some cheap motel, and she had the audacity to flip it on me. I was going to make sure she paid for it somehow. When I calmed down, I realized the first thing I needed to do was get some sort of evidence. Unfortunately, I didn't have the presence of mind to bust out a camera when I walked in on my wife's little show, so I was left with nothing. But then I had the idea to get her to admit to it in writing. So I texted her and told her that I would be staying at my brother's house and that I need a little space. She said she understood and that we could talk about it the next day. Then I told her that I just needed to understand why she cheated on me. She didn't reply for a while, and I was scared that she'd figured out what I was up to. But eventually, she replied with a long paragraph. I won't bore you with it since I barely even felt like reading it myself, but I had to because I was looking for a single line that could prove that she did. And I got lucky because she copied to it a few times in her wall of text. She said that I drove her to another man's arms, and she mentioned that he made her feel alive again. She even said that they usually went to his place, and this was the first time they've done it in our place. I didn't buy that, but it didn't matter. I'd gotten her to admit to what she'd done. But she had a bit more to say. She told me about the guy. He was a post-grad student at a college nearby. He would come to study in the same cafe that she went to on her lunch breaks. They met a few times, struck up a casual conversation, and things took off from there. She insisted that she hadn't told him she was married. I couldn't believe what she was volunteering all of this information. It was good to have, but at the same time, it didn't really help to hear it. I don't know if she felt like I was going to understand her angle or something. It's bad enough knowing that you were cheated on, but having to see it is so much worse. Especially when she went on about how he was still energetic and young at heart. Apparently, he had mountain biking as a hobby. I didn't care. I stopped reading after that, and I didn't respond to any of her messages after. When she called an hour later, I just let the phone ring. I went back home the next day, but not to talk with her. I just dropped in to pick up my stuff. I took the day off work and made sure to come by at noon when I was sure she'd be at work. When she got home later that day, she could tell that I'd come home, and she called me. She asked me why I came around when she was out, and she said she thought we were supposed to have a talk first. That was when I told her how I really felt. I was sick and tired of listening to her blame me for this. She got bored with our marriage, and instead of putting in the effort to fix it, she went out and started an affair with another man. Yet somehow she thought she could make herself the victim. Then I told her that I was done with her. I'd packed everything I needed, and I wouldn't be coming home, and I wasn't staying with my brother, so she shouldn't bother looking for me there. For the first time since I caught her cheating, she sounded panicked. It seemed like it was just setting in that her marriage was about to fall apart. She pleaded with me to just come over once and talk with her, but I refused. Then I told her the next time that she would hear from me would be when I brought her the papers to sign. When I ended the call, she was already tearing up. I didn't stick around to listen to the waterworks. I just got right into planning the divorce. I've already found a lawyer, and we've already talked about my options around the possibilities. I know the divorce will probably be rough on me, but anything's better than living with her. I genuinely want it to be over so I can move on with my life. Walking in on someone you love Doing that in your own home? That's nightmare fuel. And then for her to try and flip it on you, like somehow you pushed her into cheating. Come on. It sounds like you genuinely thought things were okay, and that's not on you. That's on her for not saying anything and choosing to sneak around instead of just being honest. And trying to play therapist right after blowing everything up? That's wild. Like, no, you don't get to cheat and then lead a relationship TED Talk 5 minutes later. Update. At first, I wasn't planning to tell anyone what happened. Well, apart from my original post here, but that's anonymous. Getting cheated on hurts in a way that can't be described, and there's a real blow to your pride. You're scared of everyone looking like the guy who couldn't keep his wife happy, even though it goes a lot deeper than that. But Stacy's reaction to the whole thing pushed me over the edge, and I did something I never thought I would do. First, she kept texting me. She asked for forgiveness a lot, but it was in a detached sort of way, like it was just a thing she was supposed to do. But she also completely refused to take accountability. She kept saying that we needed to work together to get through it. She even had the nerve to say that working out the problems that caused this would make us both better people. I noticed she'd started giving herself a little bit of blame. That was an improvement. Too bad it meant nothing to me, but it did make me think. If she wasn't afraid to blatantly gaslight me, then she would have no problem lying to our friends and family about what happened. I needed to control the narrative. It wasn't about revenge, it was just for my own protection. Though I had to admit, there was also a bit of revenge involved. She'd convinced herself that she'd done nothing wrong, and now it was time to see how she felt when everyone we knew found out about what she did. I was tempted to go with something dramatic, but I thought better of it. It would be more effective to let her actions be the focus of it, so I sent a simple text message to our friends and family. It laid out all the facts without any embellishment. I announced that Stacy and I were getting a divorce, and then I explained why. I mentioned that she'd been having an affair with the guy she met at a cafe, and that I'd caught her in the act in our living room. Then I revealed that I was filing for divorce. After that, I attached the images of her admitting to what she'd done. I made sure to keep all the juicy lines visible in the attachments. I didn't need to say anything. Her own words were right there, talking about how I'd supposedly driven her into another man's arms, and how he made her feel alive. I even included the bit where she said it was the first time they did it in our place. The fallout was almost instant. My phone blew up immediately, which I expected, but what I hadn't expected was for half the calls to come from Stacy. It took a while for Stacy to find out, since I didn't send her a copy. She knew what she did, after all. The first few calls came from close family, mine and hers. Everyone was worried and asked if it was true. When I convinced them that it wasn't some sort of elaborate prank, their reactions varied. Most were sympathetic towards me, and some were just angry at Stacy. Everybody was disappointed in her, though. Her parents were practically upset about it. Her mom even tried to convince me to take her back, and promised that she would talk to her. She offered to talk some sense into Stacy and promised that it wouldn't happen again. She's a sweet woman who means well. I knew she was just trying to save her daughter's marriage, so I didn't hold it against her. I just explained to her that I couldn't trust her not to do the same thing again. It had come so easily to her the first time, and it probably wouldn't be hard for her to do it again. I got a few calls from some friends, too. It turns out that I was right. She tried to control the narrative, and she told her friends that we had personality differences that we couldn't work through. But they couldn't argue with the evidence, and they all agreed that Stacy's actions were disgusting. It felt good to see people on my side. I didn't realize how much I wanted to hear someone acknowledge that she was the one who messed up, not me. About an hour after I spoke to her parents, Stacy called for the first time. She was crying, and the first thing she did was shout, "How could you?" She said that I was humiliating her for making a mistake, but I remembered how smug she'd looked at me when she tried to pin everything on me, and if I hadn't walked in on her, she'd still be lying to me this day. I had no sympathy for her. If anything, her tears gave me a sense of vindication. She told me that her mom called her and chewed her out for her affair. Our mutual friends were all turning their backs on her. Even some of her personal friends were scolding her. She said I was destroying her life, and she had almost no one left. I told her that she was finally facing consequences. If she wanted to think she was the victim, that was fine, but everybody else seemed to see things completely differently. But she kept insisting that I was the a-hole for revealing our personal matters. She said it was something we were supposed to work through in private. I laughed at that. So she could keep spinning her lies behind my back? No thanks. I ended the call on that. If she wanted to talk to me again, we could do that in court. That didn't stop her from trying to call me, though. She called nonstop for about an hour, so I blocked her number. I told my lawyer to let her know that she could talk to him if she wanted to communicate with me. The divorce is still ongoing, and it's looking pretty good. My lawyer said it should be relatively smooth since we don't have kids or major assets to divide. Stacy's fighting to keep the apartment, and honestly, she can keep it. Every room in that place is tainted. If I had to keep that place, I'd burn the couch and the living room. What I can't accept is alimony. She's trying to get spousal support, and I'm fighting hard not to give her a single dime. She has an okay job, though I'm not sure how long she'll hold on to it, since all her coworkers know she's a cheater now. But more importantly, I'm not giving a dime to a woman who cheated on me. The funniest thing is that her affair partner, Mr. Exciting, actually reached out to me. I'm not sure how he found out what was going on. Maybe it was from a mutual friend that they had met in the cafe. Either way, he learned that we were getting a divorce, and he texted me apologizing. He said he genuinely didn't know she was married, and that he cut off all contact with her after that. The guy wasn't even mad that I'd hit him. He seems like a stand-up guy, all things considered. Though there's no chance of us becoming friends or anything for obvious reasons. I just told him that it was fine, and we left it at that. I'm doing better now. I've found my own apartment not too far from work. Nothing fancy, but it's fine. Just large enough for one person, and no chance of walking in on someone getting railed in the living room. You know what's ironic, though? Stacy said she cheated on me because she was bored. Now her life's got all the drama and excitement she could ever ask for, and it's more than she bargained for. Meanwhile, I'm enjoying my peace and stability. I get why it felt risky to tell everyone, but I'm glad you did. You protected yourself, and now you don't have to sit back while she rewrites the story to make herself look better. I don't blame you at all for walking away from the apartment. That place would feel cursed after all that. As for the alimony, hard agree. The idea of paying someone who cheated on you? Absolutely not. What do you make of all this? Share your thoughts with us below. Thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.